Here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to make a spawner that spawns enemies, and then when they die, if we want to, then we can respawn all of them, or we can just respawn the one of them. When they die and we interact bonfire, then they will respawn. So they're dead. Press E. We see they've respawned. We're going to use two methods. We're going to use the game mode, and we're going to use a more rudimentary method for a basic setup, and then we're going to expand upon that. So it should be a fun, informative tutorial that help you set up your little Souls-like game. So like, subscribe, comment, let me know what I should do next. Thanks. And what we're going to need here is a blueprint class for our spawner, like that, and an event. And on begin play, we're going to need to call a custom event. So create a custom event, add custom event. We're going to call this spawn enemy, or enemies if you want multiple. And on begin play, we're just going to call that. So it always spawns on begin play, like so. And then we want a new variable of an integer, and I'm going to call that number to spawn. So we can do a spawn actor from class. We can get the class and promote that to a variable. Call that enemy to spawn. So we're going to make number to spawn and enemy to spawn instance editable. So select them, go to details, and select instance editable. Spawn transform is going to be where the actor is. So get actor transform. Just go pass that in, and then always spawn, ignore collisions is going to be our thing here. So now, every time we start the game, we're going to spawn an actor. And from here, I'm going to bind to onDestroyed. Bind event to onDestroyed. And pass that in here. And then from event, I'm going to add a custom event. And then we're going to call on enemy dead. And we've got a choice here. We can then just spawn another enemy. So we can spawn enemies, like so, and I'll show you what that looks like now. So we're going to go to our BP third person character, and we're going to get a number key. So I'm just going to get number 9. I'm going to get actor of class. You should have like a whole damage system, but I'm not setting up a damage system. And on, going to do BP enemy base, and we're going to destroy actor. So I can show you what this looks like. There's our spawner. We're going to select the mage. I've got this on number 9. There's the mage spawned. There she is dead. There's a new one, dead one, new one, dead, new. Okay, so we know that that works. So every time we kill one, a new one will appear. Okay, and we can set a little delay on that if you want that later. But actually, I don't want this like this currently. So we're just going to improve that a little bit. We're going to do a for loop like this. And our loop body will be this, the number to spawn. So we'll go from our first index of 1 and our number to spawn. And we'll loop through this as many times as we need to get our number to spawn. So now if we go back to our third person map and select our character, and we want 2, if I simulate this, we've got 2 of these enemies that have spawned. And if we want them to be a little bit further, we can random point in reachable radius, and we'll get the origin. So we need to break this open and break this open as well. So split this. The origin is the location. this is fine. The random location is here, and scale should always be 1. Our radius is 100. So now if we simulate this, write this again, simulate it, let's increase our range. 100 isn't that big actually. 1,000. So we simulate this, there we go. Now they're more random and more spaced out. Where should you go? There shit's behind me. But this, if you kill one enemy in this setup, then it will spawn 2, because we're telling it to spawn 2. So when this loop is completed, we're going to set the number to spawn to 0. And then we're going to get number to spawn here, and we're going to do ++ here. And that's going to spawn 1 enemy. There we go. So we're going to kill 1. It's going to spawn a new one. Like so. So we know that that bit's working. But what happens if I don't want to spawn a new one until later? So let's change this a little bit. On enemy dead, this is increasing every time an enemy has died. And we can show this with a print string, just like this. And then if we add a new custom event, call this reset enemies. So then we can do this. So now when we kill one, 1 disappears and it's up to 2. We can make it do it on, so we can go num9, change this to num0, and we can do get all actors of class, choose the spawner, and then we can do a for each loop on this, and we can then call reset enemies, like so. And what will happen now is we kill 1, press 0, it respawns 1, kill 2, press 0, and it respawns 2, as we can see. Okay, so we can call this little bit of code here from anything. So if I wanted this in a widget, for instance a bonfire, I can just call this little bit of code. So go to bonfire, go here, and then now we're going to kill both of these enemies. I'm going to interact with my bonfire. I'm not going to do anything, and both of them have respawned. The get all actors of class is a bit of a funky node. It'll loop for every single actor that we have that exists. So what if we don't want to use that? Then that's fine, because we can also use the game mode. So if we come here, we'll do a cast to BP third person game mode. We'll do get game mode, and then we'll open up the third person game mode, and in event dispatches, create an event dispatcher. I've called mine on respawn enemies, and then create a custom event for respawn dead enemies. Back in third person, we're going to call this custom event respawn dead enemies, like so. And then in the spawner, after this print string, we're going to do a cast to game mode class, get game mode here, and we're going to bind to respawn enemies, bind event on respawn enemies. I'm going to create a custom event, and from that custom event, we're then going to unbind event from on respawn enemies, plug that into the respawn. So the red node also goes into respawn. I will explain all of this in a sec. And then we're going to do our spawn enemies. like so. So now we'll play. We'll kill this one and kill this one. And they respawn. We'll kill one and it respawns. Like so. So we're not then going into the spawner, we're using the third person game mode. Okay, and again, we can add this to any part of our widget here. Now the reason that this explain this, we're using an event dispatcher in our third person game mode, which sends a message to everything that's listening, so everything that's bound to this event dispatcher. This game mode is persistent always across our level, so we're not looping through any of our spawners that may or may not have enemies. So every time we loop through, we click spawn enemies, but it doesn't do anything because our number to spawn is set to 0 until they die, and then once they die, the number is set to more. So even though it's not going very far, it's still hitting these two nodes, so there's still a computational cost to that. Whereas here, we're binding to the actor when it's destroyed, so we're only doing something when the actor's destroyed. When it's destroyed, then we're binding to listen to the respawn event. So this will only run when the respawn event is called. And on respawn, we're making sure we're not listening to any other events that are the same. And then we're spawning the enemies again. So this is a very specific, it's only calling the ones that are assigned to it, rather than looking through every single actor for spawner and then resetting them from there. Okay. Now, you may want to use this because you don't want to use a cast. That's fine. You may not understand event dispatches too much. I'll have another video on event dispatches so you can understand them a bit better, but they are a very useful tool for this. Or you may, in fact, not use the game mode, but if I was to use a different game mode, then obviously this wouldn't work, but I would potentially just create a parent and then reparent this game mode to it. But all of your projects will have a game mode to use, so this will be persistent across everything and will work.